It's one of the most horrible memories of my life. The kind of thing where somebody approaches you because you're a content creator and that's why they want to date you. I'm like, what? She's pregnant. Somebody literally threatened me
Really?
to come to my home and I don't know what, but again, tough upbringing. I was like, bring it, bitch. So
Are you serious? Oh my goodness.
like I stepped out of the airport and there were literally 9, 10 guys running towards me and completely hogging me, and I had to get through that. What? You can do that? I was so creeped out by that. If I could put it out in the universe, I don't mind being a hot chick in a collab. Satshya, I think you need to end this podcast right now, young lady.
Hello, Ivana. Welcome to Chumma Conversations.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy.
Yay. So, a lot of people know you as travel vlog Ivana. They also know you as that Dutch girl who's moved to India.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious about this nickname, which is Paneer Princess.
Oh,
What is that about?
so when I first traveled India back in
Hmm.
2015, I discovered paneer.
Okay.
And I was so hooked on it that
Uh-huh.
I'm not joking. I used to have it almost for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the thing is, back then I used to vlog daily so
Mm-hmm.
people could see everything that I would eat. And after a month of like only eating paneer or like 80% exclusive paneer dishes, people started calling me the paneer princess because I'm just obsessed with paneer. And still until this day, I eat paneer at least once a week. I'm just obsessed.
Were you always this confident and articulate? Like, what were you like in school?
I did always have a big mouth. And I was always the person who got in trouble because I have a very loud voice and my
Hmm.
laugh is also very loud. So if we were gossiping in class and stuff, the teachers would always hear me and they would always expel me and stuff.
Okay.
But so the thing is, I have always been confident. However, I think in primary school, it went overboard to arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always, again, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I was always the smartest kid in the class and I always got the highest grades without putting in too much effort. And I was always, concerned about looking good and dressing well. So at one point, I moved primary schools when I was, let's say, 11.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a new class, completely like new kids, everything. And the most popular girl there wasn't pleased with me joining the new
Okay.
class because I got better grades than her. I dressed well. What she used to do a lot was when I became friends with someone, she would suddenly be completely interested in that person. So when that happened again with my then best friend, I told her like, "Can't you see what she's doing? Like just now because you're hanging out with me, she's showing an interest in you, and she wants to play with you, and she's inviting you over to her home. Whereas prior to that, she didn't."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that girl maybe got offended because I said that, and she went to that queen bee girl, told her that. I learned a very harsh lesson coming from that confrontation because she came to me in front of the whole class. It was literally like 30 kids. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, like, did you say that about me? And I got so scared seeing that group of 30 kids opposite of me that I actually lied, which was the stupidest thing that I did in my life. And I learned a lesson there that you should never say anything about anybody that you wouldn't say to their face.
Right.
The whole class basically saw me as a liar and a hypocrite and fake, they
Mm-hmm.
called me. So in the last few months of my primary school, which was like 3, 4 months, I got completely exiled from the group, which is one of our biggest fears as humans, right?
Yeah.
And still like talking about it, it's one of the most horrible memories of my life. But I was very much known as the girl that you do not mess with.
Okay.
And I had really tough friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I think a lot of that confidence is born from being in a very, very vulnerable position
Mm-hmm.
and then choosing that you're never going to be in that position again.
When you say you went to a tough school and you had tough friends and nobody would mess with you, what does that mean? Like, were you a part of a gang or something?
Oh, no, no, no. It was not like that. But um, it was very common to have fights every day in our school. And it was very common that some kids would smoke weed from morning
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole day. The thing with the weed being legalized in the Netherlands is that kids also get very easy access to it.
Right.
So it was very common for people to smoke joints throughout the day at only 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so fights were very common. Smoking weed was very common. At one point, as you know, the years progressed, people were getting drunk in the morning and going
Mm.
through the day drunk. So it was not part of a gang, but it was a school where definitely there were some kids that you just simply do not mess with because they are prepared to stab you and they are prepared to go to jail. I used to
Okay.
steal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we were also so bored in school. There was not, it was just a small town and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have much to do. So we would like, we would start stealing just out of boredom. And it was like kind of the most exciting thing
Mm-hmm.
about our day. So that's more like what I mean with a tough school. Like people would get stabbed, like not often, but sometimes people would get stabbed in the schoolyard, and fights would happen on the daily, and people would go to jail, and people would use drugs and alcohol, even at the age of like 13, 15 years
Mm-hmm.
old. So
Now that you've told me this story about you from school, and I've been following your content for a while, and I've always thought you're a very zen like person. You're very calm, you're very peaceful. What brought about that change? Was it traveling that did it?
traveling for sure, because when you go out into the world alone, especially as a woman, you're quite vulnerable. And what I experienced was that there are so many more good people in the world than bad people.
Mm-hmm.
And that even when bad people approach you, somehow your intuition kicks in. So you instantly know that I need to get away from this person. I can't talk to them anymore, even
Mm-hmm.
if they haven't done anything wrong. So there's a certain confidence that really, really comes from that, that gives you that peace when you are interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
I could step into Paharganj in Delhi and be surrounded by chaos and just go about my day like it was a
Mm-hmm.
mall. But yoga teacher training, yeah, for sure has completely changed me. I still meditate every day for an hour. I do yoga once a week. That is definitely my sanity and where a lot of my peace comes from.
Mm. It's interesting you mentioned about your experience walking through Paharganj and how you felt peaceful through it. Because when I had first gone to Paharganj, I remember I was wearing a long skirt and I was wearing, I guess, what you would call touristy clothes, and I was alone. And the number of people who just came up to me like, ma'am, hotel, ma'am, you want party, ma'am, you want this. I was like, is this what a foreigner goes through? Like, this is terrible. Like, as an Indian, I was like, oh, this is too much. So that's some next level piece to feel like calm going through Paharganj.
Honestly, for me, it at that moment, it felt more like entertainment. And also, see, when you travel the world and you interact with a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that everybody has a story.
Mm.
And some people's stories are very dark. And some people's stories are some of the most fun stories that you'll ever hear. So when those kind of people approach me, I always try to be super, super respectful because they have to do that job, right? They
Mm.
don't necessarily have chosen that path. And even if they have, then still it's their work. They're just, trying to do their work. So the least that I try to do is always stay respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get really annoying, obviously I will walk away. And there have been very, very few instances where I've had to get rude with people or or felt uncomfortable. But at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I just realized, this is their job, this is what they have to do. And also, I think like going to Spain
Mm-hmm.
in those very, very crowded tourist boulevards where at
Uh-huh.
night they're just crazy harassing you to come to their clubs, come to their restaurants. I think that's also where you kind of get used to it and also understand that it's just people's job. This is just how they earn their living, and
Right.
everybody has to pay for their food, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really nice observation. I think I'll keep that in mind the next time. Because at first you're like, why are these people annoying? Can't they just see I'm walking by myself? But yeah, that's a
They
very.
have to, and I think if you approach it in a more fun way,
Mm-hmm.
they also respond in a more fun way.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I try to not respond because the moment you give something, like they are like, "Ooh, I got a reaction," so that's gonna make it only worse. So usually I was just ignore it, ignore it, ignore it, and if they really come, then I'm like, no, 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 blah blah blah. So usually just ignoring it is the easiest way to get rid of them.
Yeah. Today it's very mainstream to kind of quit your job and travel the world, but I'm sure it wasn't as mainstream when you decided to take that decision in 2015, which is almost like 10 years ago. When you first decided to quit your job to travel, was that like a short-term plan and you thought, okay, I'll travel for a year and then get back to work, or did you envision life as a travel vlogger?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think I knew because you're very right. It was definitely not mainstream back then.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in my world, it didn't even exist as an option until my friend slash colleague, Claudia, from my corporate office
Mm-hmm.
introduced me to it because we started working on the exact same day. In that moment, we became besties at work. So for 3 long years, we were working next to each other. And then one day she calls me and says, like, can you come with me to the kitchen? I have something to tell you. And it's really exciting. And I'm like, what? She's pregnant.
Okay.
Or she's bought a house or something, because that's the normal things that we are raised with to do with our life, right? And we go into the kitchen and she's like, I'm gonna quit my job and travel the world with my boyfriend. And I'm like, what? You can do that? So in that moment, I was so stoked for her, but also I was so stoked for myself because it was almost like the gates for to heaven opened for me,
Mm-hmm.
that this was an option. And obviously, I completely devoured every detail of her story, how she planned this. She started saving money the day we started working from our paycheck. From our first paycheck, she started saving money for this. So,
Okay.
in those 3 years that we were working side by side, she had saved 20,000 plus euros to travel
Wow.
for a year, and I had just bought an apartment, and I felt so cheated. I was like, why didn't you tell me earlier? I would have also loved to do this and go through this journey with you. But the great thing was that she started a blog and showed exactly how she and her boyfriend did that. She even
Mm-hmm.
shared the exact Excel that they had used for their expenses and for saving that money. So in the 3 years after that, I just followed her plan to the T and planned for that trip. But then, did I know if I was going to do this forever? Definitely not, because while I was saving that money and mentally also preparing to quit my job, because it's not easy being raised with an idea, a future, an identity
Mm-hmm.
for most of your life, and then suddenly having to detach from that future plan and turn your life upside down. So I was doing a lot of research on what it's like to travel full time and what it also does to you as a person. And one of the things that I came across, which turned out to be a common theme, was that people were having travel burnout. And usually it happened after 3 or 4 months of continuous travel. You just
Right.
get really, really tired. You start missing having your own bed. You start
Mm-hmm.
missing your friends, your community. And I didn't know if that would happen to me, but I did know it existed. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started traveling, I really paced myself with that thought in the back of my mind, also because I had an actual burnout the year before that. I
Right.
was stuck at home for 6 months, not being able to leave my bed, completely exhausted mentally, emotionally, and physically. So I really paced myself during my travels, usually planning a whole month in one country where people would usually blaze through it within the span of a week or something. So
Yeah.
I spent a month in Bali, I spent a week in Taiwan, impromptu, but then I spent a month in Korea. And I really took my time during those travels to get accustomed to the culture, to get the feel of a city, and really experience daily life.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to say that after the first 3 or 4 months, I was very, very, very happy
Mm-hmm.
to go to my brother's home in Hong Kong. He lives in Hong Kong,
Okay.
and have that familiar environment,
Mm-hmm.
homey environment, and have that break from traveling. So in that moment, I think I did realize that completely continuous travel, the digital nomad life,
Mm-hmm.
that is not for me. I don't necessarily enjoy that. Because I think a lot of people underestimate how much time and effort and energy goes into not just the logistics of your travel, so
Mm-hmm.
booking your flights, then booking the commute to your accommodation, then booking an accommodation where you feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes also it happens that you have an accommodation and you just don't feel comfortable there. Then you
Yeah.
have to leave. So then you have to find a different accommodation. And then you have to figure out food. So what are the restaurants around your place? Where are the supermarkets? And doing that over and over and over and over again, at one point, it just really becomes exhausting.
Yeah.
So I think after that first year, I did definitely realize that this whole continuous travel thing, I don't think I enjoy it. And also, obviously, I miss my friends as well. And I had a boyfriend who
Mm-hmm.
didn't travel with me. So I think after that first year, I understood that continuous travel is not for me. I don't think I would enjoy that. But obviously, I did love travel for a lot of other reasons.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned somewhere that when you were 15, you had seen the movie Devdas,
Yeah.
and that's what made you fall in love with India.
Yes.
My question is, where was Devdas playing in the Netherlands? Like, where did you watch it?
Oh, so my in the Netherlands, this is very
Mm.
interesting. You have a Hindustani community. These are people originally from India, mostly from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh,
Okay.
who were transported to Suriname, which is a country in Latin America,
Okay.
by the Dutch. And it was, I'm not sure it was like if it was like complete colonizer activities, like
Mm-hmm.
what they did with Africa, where they put the slaves on a ship and then transported them to Latin America.
Right.
But I think it was more of a thing where they promised the Indian people better jobs in Suriname, working on the plantations, or in the whole, like, how do you say that, colonizer economy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a word.
Okay.
So these people are originally Indian, but they were brought to Suriname by the Dutch. And then after Suriname was dissolved as a colony from the Dutch, they got the opportunity to come to the Netherlands and obviously live in the Dutch society. And they are Dutch. So there is a whole Hindustani, that's what they call themselves,
Mm-hmm.
community in the Netherlands, which are people from originally Indian descent, but they do have their own Hindustani culture. It's not definitely not as Indian as we know it here.
Mm-hmm.
So my best friend uh, in high school, she was Hindustani. So her mom was watching those movies. I walked into the living room and her mom was watching Devdas, and she watched Bollywood movies before, but none of them had you know now only in retrospect I can only say like nothing beats Sanjay Leela Bhansali aesthetics, like really
Mm-hmm.
nothing. So I think it was that whole you know Sanjay Leela Bhansali bringing to life of Indian culture that really captured me in that moment, and until this
Mm-hmm.
day Devdas is my favorite Bollywood movie.
What was your first trip to India like then? Because you had this whole image from Devdas, right? So when you first came to India, what were misconceptions that turned out to be false and what turned out to be true?
I realized that, wow, I'm expecting this beautiful world where women only walk in saris and, everybody's dancing in the streets.
Yeah.
And there's going to be chaos at the airport because I've seen videos of the airports completely being full of people and it taking hours to get through immigration and blah, blah, blah. So, because of that South Korea experience, not matching my expectations at all, I did come to India with a lot of, how do you say that? With a lot of disclaimers in my mind. Like, it's
Right.
okay if people are not dancing in the street. Like, you should not be disappointed not seeing that.
Have you ever seen someone dance in the street in all your time
Unfortunately,
here?
not. And I even like at Indian weddings, I am like, people, when are we gonna dance? Like, so no. But then the good thing was landing at Kochi Airport, which is a place that I recommend for any foreigner coming to India for the first
Hmm.
time. There was no line. There was no nothing. I literally blazed through that airport within 15 minutes, no joke. And
Wow.
everybody was so nice. Immigration was flawless. Everything was super clean. Even getting my SIM card was a breeze.
Hmm.
My homestay owner had convinced me to take a local bus, which I was absolutely mortified of. But he said, you can choose to spend 1,000 rupees on a taxi
Hmm.
or take this local bus, which is fine for 90 rupees. And I was traveling on a budget back then. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, let me try it out. If he's being so adamant about this and he deals with foreigners a lot, let me just try it out. And it was the best decision ever because I just got to meet people on that bus ride already, and the ticket master, he was so sweet, and just the whole experience of driving from the airport to Fort Kochi,
Hmm.
it did really feel like I was in a Bollywood movie, and not not because people were dancing in the streets because nobody does that,
Yeah.
but everything was so pretty, everything was so colorful. Kerala is so green. People were so chill, so down to earth. There was music playing. I mean, that was there. So it, it it did not meet my expectations at all, but in the best possible way, I have to say.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
same goes for Paris and Barcelona. So Bangalore is just a completely different city in India, which I do definitely feel is worth visiting because of the whole cafe culture and the restaurant culture. I call it the hipster capital of
Yeah,
India.
it is.
It really
You see
is.
third
So
wave coffee everywhere.
yes, yes. Have you read the founder story?
No, I haven't.
Basically, these guys were so obsessed with coffee that they thought like, let's start a coffee franchise, and they just made it into what it is today. So
Oh,
I
wow.
just found it very fascinating. Like, oh, we like coffee. We're gonna start a coffee franchise, and then they make it into this massive thing that's now
Yeah.
really iconic in Bangalore, I would say. It's almost like the Starbucks story. Like everybody glorifies the Starbucks story, but I feel
Hmm.
like Third Wave has just as much as an iconic story as
And I think it
Starbucks.
also got a little more popular because of the name Third Wave. And this was also during COVID. So they were like, oh, have you been to Third Wave Coffee? It started off as a joke, but now you see it everywhere. The coffee's really nice. I love visiting there.
Yes,
So
yes.
is that also the way you decided to start your business, Dutch Chai, because you love chai so much?
I'm not sure if you're serious, but
I
Dutch
am.
Chai was an April's Fool prank.
Are you serious? Oh my goodness. I totally fell for
Everybody, it is
No.
nuts. It's
Okay.
crazy. I have even received emails with people saying, "I know it's an April's Fool prank, but I really hope you do this." And I'm like, "What? Am I onto something?
Oh
Like, should
no.
I start this? Should I
You
do this? Like,
should.
what
I was
is
like,
this?"
wow, what is this new thing called Dutch chai? Sounds interesting. How cool. Wow. Okay. Now I'm like sad.
No,
I was like, okay,
it's
next time I come to Bangalore, I can order some Dutch
so
chai.
many people. It's crazy, but I don't know if it would be good.
Yeah, I was like, amazing. A content creator, leveraging. I always love it when content creators are able to branch out into another field,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And start their own
I
stuff.
agree. I agree. No, I mean, well, the thing is, see, I've had my own business now for um, 2015, so 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was mostly about content creation and consulting. And I think COVID really changed me in a sense where after years of traveling and being obsessed with content creation about traveling, for the first time, I realized that I am not that good as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, you really have to build systems and you have to think about, you know, who are your customers and how are you going to reach your customers and what is that product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at different kinds of industries, the hospitality industry is one of the industries which are the hardest to create a business in. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason for that is because you are so dependent on footfall.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an actual physical location, I read the book of Kainas Messman,
Mm-hmm.
the the founder of Theobroma Bakery, because
Okay.
I'm doing a lot of research on big, building a very, very sustainable long-term business. So the thing with hospitality is that first of all, footfall. Second
Mm-hmm.
of all, you're so dependent on the current day trends. There's so much competition. There are a lot of costs involved
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of risks. So in terms of business, it's actually it's a very tough industry to succeed in. So that's why my preference would not be to get into that industry
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's too many risks versus not enough rewards. Even if you look at the revenues that are going in there, and I mean Rameshwaram Cafe is an exception.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, everybody loves the story of Rameshwaram Cafe, 4.5 crores a month,
Mm-hmm.
but it is an exception. If you look at the amount of restaurants that and cafes that are failing in Bangalore,
Mm-hmm.
that is that is much much more than the amount of cafes and restaurants that are succeeding. So if you look at it from a business perspective, I don't think Dutch chai is. Um, I think there are easier ways to build a business which would generate me a lot more revenue
Mm-hmm.
than Dutch chai.
Yeah, now that you mention it, so when I was doing research for this interview, I was
Yeah.
also checking for, how come you don't have an Instagram page for it? Or is it on your website? Is it in your LinkedIn bio? Like, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I thought maybe it's something you announced and now you're working on it to build it out. I thought you were just testing the waters, but now you're testing my heart.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, but do try the cheese foam on the
Uh-huh.
bubble tea, and then
Mm-hmm.
let me know if you like it, and then maybe one day we'll do a pop up or something.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
that would
know.
be. Tell me some of the cultural confusions you've had while you've been in India.
Oh, I think the most funniest one have always been connected to food. I remember the first time that I ordered pav bhaji because people told me like, "Oh, pav bhaji! If you're in Mumbai, you have to eat pav bhaji." And I was like, "Okay, sure." I ordered pav bhaji,
Uh huh.
not even knowing what pav bhaji is. I just went
Right.
to Juhu Beach and ordered pav bhaji at the first stand that I saw, and then I had the plate of pav bhaji in front of me, thinking, "Huh, how do you eat this?" And this is literally on camera because I used to vlog daily back then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know how to eat this. Are you supposed to like put this gravy in the bun? And I literally scooped the gravy in the bun and ate pav bhaji like a hamburger. So,
Okay. Aw.
um, also, like for instance, tearing roti with one hand,
Mm-hmm.
that was a thing because one of the first things that you learn coming to India is that yes, you eat with your hands, but then also it's just one hand. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot tear the roti with two hands because your other hand is usually used for other purposes. So you don't touch the food with that.
Okay.
So then learning how to tear the roti with one hand, whoo, that was also a journey I have to say. And I was like, why do I have to do this? But then, you learn how to eat with chopsticks.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you're in India, you tear roti with one hand. Also eating rice in
Uh-huh.
South India with your hand, that was also an experience
Uh-huh.
because I didn't know how to make the scoop.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
you're doing, those machines where you're like
Those
trying
stuffed
to.
toys that you're trying to pick. Oh, yeah.
I was that with the rice because you don't know how to make the scoop, and then
Yeah.
luckily, that's one of the things that I love most about having vlogged everything and
Mm-hmm.
exposing it to the world, I got so much feedback from
Mm-hmm.
people, even in that case that, you don't do that like stuffed toy thing. You make a scoop with your hand and then like you scoop the rice and then you use your
Yeah.
thumb. And so I got educated a lot through the content that I put out there and
Mm-hmm.
showing people like what a dumbass foreigner I was and struggling with all of these things. But it paid off in the end because people really were so helpful and actually connected to me in that way and felt like they should take care of me because otherwise I'm not going to make it out here.
I think a lot of it has to do with your approach to things. You're very, very respectful about Indian culture, food, and other things. Like I've seen a lot of vlogs that people are quite mocking about it, or you see a lot of these foreigner reacts to Indian videos where they have no context of the culture and they just randomly watch these videos and say something. But a lot of Indians still are like, wow, you watched the trailer. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. So when I see
Yeah.
that, I'm like, but they're just doing it for the views. And then I see content like yours where you actually care about the people, you take the
Oh,
time to understand the context. So I really, really like your respectful approach to traveling. And I've
oh, that's so
wanted to
sweet.
say that in
Thank you.
person. So,
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I do really try to be respectful about anything and everything
hmm.
because I think, first of all, because I am an immigrant child.
Hmm.
So I grew up in the Balkan until I was 8 years old.
Right.
My mom is Serbian, my dad is Bosnian. And then coming to the Netherlands, a lot of things were strange to me.
Hmm.
But a lot of Dutch people would be like, no, but it's our culture. So you just adapt to it. And you do in that sense, because you do feel that I live here, so I should adapt to these things.
Hmm.
But then also traveling the world, you also see how things can be done differently. And sometimes it's actually smarter to do certain things differently.
Hmm.
So it teaches you to be very, very humble about how things are done and that
Hmm.
it can always be done in a different way if you just try to understand it from the other person's point of view. One of the
Hmm.
things that I think foreigners really have issues coming to terms with is Indian arranged marriage culture.
Yeah.
And you do see them making fun of that a lot. And even like, for
Hmm.
instance, Indian shows like Indian matchmaking and
Yeah.
stuff are like playing into that as
Yeah.
well. But then to be very fair, having had relationships that ended, that shouldn't have ended,
Hmm.
and the reasoning behind an arranged marriage that, your parents have known you your whole life. Like, how does your mom always know that you're lying or
Hmm.
how to take care of you or those kind of things? And then having a say in the partner that you choose, which is also a misconception amongst foreigners. A lot of people think that an arranged marriage is forced upon you. And in
Hmm.
some situations it is, but in most modern day arranged marriages, it's really a choice of Indian children to go into that process because they're just a little bit lazy to find their own partner.
And sometimes it's really hard as well. Like
It
dating is
is. It
hard
is.
everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So how awesome is it that your parents are playing Tinder for you and selecting they're doing all that hard work for you, like checking the profiles and checking the income and checking the education and all those kind of things. And of course, you cannot understand that on the spot if that person is going to be the best person for the rest of your life. But at the same time, I've seen so many marriages end in the
Hmm.
Netherlands after 10 years together, 20 years together. So you never get those guarantees. It doesn't matter if it's a love marriage or an arranged marriage. So, in that sense, if you approach things in a more open minded way, you learn that there are other options out there and that you can try out new things and that it might make your life better. Not that I would choose arranged marriage, but
Hmm.
for instance, like eating with your hands, I really thoroughly enjoy that.
Hmm. Speaking of relationships,
Ooh,
you have a boyfriend in Bangalore where you live,
yes.
but none of us know who he is because he's a very like secret part of your life. We sometimes see his hand somewhere, we see his elbow, we see his hair in some of your stories. What made you decide to intentionally keep your boyfriend off of your social media?
Well, my previous boyfriend was also very private. He was an artist manager who literally
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of famous people's phone numbers in his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And being around celebrities a lot, he always found it, how do you say that? Um, he always found it uninteresting to click selfies with them or constantly be in the spotlight because he was like, I am the artist manager. The artist should be in the spotlight. Why would I be there in the picture with them? He already told me that he did not want to be in my content. Now, having been in this industry for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
I have been obsessed with social media since 2007. Like
Mm-hmm.
even before blogs were there in the Netherlands, everything was still on forums. You know, Twitter became a thing in 2009. After that, YouTube and Instagram came up. So when you've been in the industry for a very long time, you also see the downsides that can happen because other people have tried it
Mm-hmm.
and you can see where they have failed. I saw so many couples completely taking off with their couple content
Mm-hmm.
and then breaking up. The whole channel goes to waste
Yeah.
because people subscribe for that couple content, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So in the end, the continuation of your channel becomes dependent on you being part of a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to take that risk.
Right.
Plus, my boyfriend was, um, he was very private.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also saw, that was the third reason, when you expose your partner to the outside world
Mm-hmm.
and present them as, you know, that most special person who's
Yeah.
so sweet and doing all these nice things to you, because obviously you're not going to put your fights on the internet.
Correct.
Um, you're basically creating a Tinder ad for your partner as well to all those other people out there
Uh-huh.
looking at you. And this is no joke. I know quite a lot of content creators back in the Netherlands who have also broken up because the partner suddenly starts getting DMs from all
Mm.
these hot girls, or the other way around, the girl starts getting all these DMs from all the hot guys, and someone ends up cheating.
Mm.
So I have seen the big downsides of building your content based off of your relationship
Right.
and weighing all those pros and cons. I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna create my content around myself, around my own observations, around my own experiences. And that's also how my India content started. People
Mm-hmm.
always subscribe for me and for my reactions as a foreigner in India, not for me being part of an interracial couple,
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't that. I already had content for 3 years
Yeah.
about India by myself before, you know, meeting him and us becoming a couple. So there was no need for me to expose him in my content, even though I think I would have grown a lot more in terms of subscribers and
Yeah.
views and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, also again, being in this industry for a very, very long time, my real life will always be more important than my digital life. I'm not going to risk my relationship or expose my relationship to the outside world if that would mean that in any way exposing my relationship could end my relationship, because that
Right.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
And um and it would not only end my relationship, but it could also mean the end of my channel as well, because
Mm-hmm.
the moment you are not part of that couple anymore, your views and your subscribers drop as well. And on top of that, my current boyfriend is also extremely private. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he genuinely doesn't even have a Facebook page. He only has an Instagram page to
Wow.
follow me because he's my biggest hype guy. Like, he is
Aw.
my number one fan. He is the first one to watch my videos. He literally sends me screenshots when he's traveling, like, "Oh, I'm watching your video."
So sweet.
And
Oh.
he's such a cutie. He When we met, I did tell him at one point or another that I had social media, and he refused to watch any of my videos or check me out on Instagram because he was like, I want to see the person who you really are in real life before I start making opinion and judgments based of your content. And I think
That's
that's
so
the sexiest
mature.
thing you can say to a content creator.
Seriously. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
But he is my number
amazing.
one fan, and now we have also come to a point where he watches my videos first before they go online, and he gives me
Mm-hmm.
feedback. He's my chief
Yeah.
entertainment officer, as I call
Yeah.
him.
Same
Yeah.
here.
So he is like honestly half of my content. If you see the pictures where I'm traveling, I'm mostly with him.
Mm-hmm.
He has shot that, so he's also the perfect Instagram hubby, the perfect videographer. He's really good at it. Like he really has an eye for aesthetics. But featuring my content, no, that is not something that he is interested in or that I'm interested in.
That's a very mature way to go about it, because I know that a lot of people look at couple content and they're like, this is the best way to grow, and it is. People are very invested in a couple, and it's
Yes.
great way to get numbers. But and it's really, really hard to say, okay, I'm gonna value my relationship over my content or my work. So yeah, I'm sure at times also you would have felt like, I want to share this special moment, with my followers who are also invested in your life. But I think you've maintained like now the perfect balance.
I sometimes do, but that doesn't mean that he has to be in there. There's this one, oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing. There's this one Vietnamese girl who lives in Germany, and her German
Yes.
boyfriend is also very shy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I think she has like the perfect way to show off her relationship and their connection without necessarily exposing him in the world. And what I think a lot of people also underestimate is when you expose yourself on social media, um, your partner may have a regular job and
Hmm.
work in an environment where exposing him on social media might risk him losing his job because of certain things
Yeah.
that you have shown about them or what you have said about them or what in the moment they have said on camera or shown on camera. And that's
Hmm.
why I say real life is more important than social media, because
Yeah.
even though it is definitely a business, at the end of the day you have to think about how it impacts daily life. And people have lost their jobs about things being done or said on social media. So I don't think in this digital age you should be thinking that that's a myth.
Do you mind sharing how did you and your boyfriend meet?
Um, the official answer is through mutual friends, through a
Okay.
mutual friend called Jatinder.
Okay, Jatinder, good job.
The unofficial answer is we met through Tinder.
Okay. Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, yeah.
Tinder is the best. Like dating apps have made life so much easier.
Honestly, it was um, one of the easiest ways for me to meet people because
Mm-hmm.
when you're traveling alone, I am not the type of person that is going to go to a bar or a restaurant, like a full on bar or restaurant by myself. Honestly, even on Tinder, the guys that are meeting, 9 out of 10 have just become my friends. The fact
Yeah.
that he became my boyfriend was more of a coincidence, and my
Mm-hmm.
intention on going on Tinder was also not necessarily to find a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Or even though you're talking to a lot of guys, honestly, while I'm traveling, I talk to a lot of guys also. So I think my whole intention, even on going on Tinder, was to just meet people
Mm-hmm.
and meet guys in that process as well, not necessarily thinking that it would end up in a relationship. And it was also like that. Like when we met, we were talking for 2 weeks about food. That's it. Because he's
Love it.
Punjabi.
Okay.
And like,
Okay.
yeah, Punjabi's for the win. So, so we were just talking about food. Have you eaten? What are you doing? When are you going to eat? What have you eaten?
Uh-huh.
Was your food good? Like those kind of things. So he made me feel very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And he when he never flirted with me, like genuinely he never flirted with me. Like obviously he saw some pictures and stuff, but only like when we met for the first time. He and it was so funny because it is a little bit of a Bollywood moment. Like I came to him and he was sitting with his back towards me,
Uh-huh.
and he stood up, he turned around and he was like, oh wow, you're so beautiful.
Ah.
And that was literally the first time, but it was also not, the creepy kind of way. You could see that it
Mm-hmm.
was so genuine. And from that moment, I think And he also says that, like, from that moment, I had an interest in you, because before that, it was just like, I'm just talking to a foreigner girl who's traveling in India. And he also thought that he would never see me again after that meeting. It was literally,
Mm-hmm.
we were just friends. And, but then on our first date, like, obviously there was chemistry, and we started flirting with each other. So that's only like how it started. But so that's what I mean. Like, I don't think I would ever meet a guy the way that I was traveling, because simply you lose track of people so fast.
Yeah.
Also, when you're traveling, I can meet somebody and spend a whole day with them and then not see them for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think that also played a role.
What was your experience being on a dating app in India as a foreigner?
Honestly, way better in North India than South India, I have to
Really?
say. I know that's very undiplomatic. Oh my gosh, but it is true, because, and I think it has to do with that thing that, North India sees a lot more foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
So the guys who I was interacting with didn't necessarily always approach me with, you know, what are your biggest culture shocks in India, or those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. It was more of a genuine conversation, like, what are you doing today and what is your background. It felt more leveled.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in South India, I was definitely being treated more as exotic, and for
Mm-hmm.
me that makes it more difficult to connect with a guy, because if from the beginning you're already treating me like I'm exotic, it's the kind of thing where somebody approaches you because you're a content creator and that's why they want to date you. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're not seeing me as a person in the
Mm-hmm.
first place. Because I was mortified. I was seriously mortified that somebody who watches my videos or like knows me from social media would then swipe on my profile. Like,
Oh no.
I really did not want that.
Fan meetup gone wrong.
I know, right? But imagine, like, how bad would it be if somebody did recognize me, understood
Uh-huh.
that it was me, and then did not say it, and then went on to meet me. Like, that was my biggest
Yeah.
nightmare. I was so creeped out by that
Oh
idea.
gosh.
I would not have wanted that, because then you know a lot more things about me than I
Mm-hmm.
know about you. And again, it's about that level playing field, where I just feel then it's not necessarily an honest conversation that you're having with someone.
Yeah. I also feel like that when I meet someone and they're like, "Oh, I've been actually like I feel like I know you because I've been watching your videos." And then I feel like I can't have a conversation with you because you think you already know everything about me, but that's only content, right? That's not my entire personality in my life.
Exactly. Exactly. And at one point you're just like, okay, you think you know me, that's fine. You know that side of me, because
Yeah.
the reality also is that that side of you is real. What
Mm-hmm.
you put out on social media, it is real. It is a part of you, and they do know that part of you. But at the same time, there's so much more to you that is only
Correct.
reserved for people who take the time and effort to get to know you in real life, right?
Yeah. Wise words. A lot of wisdom being dropped today, Ivana.
Well, I am becoming an auntie, so like, it's coming out.
Speaking of auntie, on your blog, you
Mhm.
have this amazing piece of advice for foreigners who are coming to India for the first time. You have a theory called the mom mode.
Oh, yeah,
Activate
yeah,
the
yeah.
mom mode.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Mm-hmm.
demonstrate what that would look like?
Satya, I think you need to end this podcast right now, young lady. Have you eaten? Have you had breakfast? Hello. Have you had breakfast?
Nice.
Yes, you had breakfast. I don't think you had enough breakfast. I can see it in your eyes. You're hungry. You need to end this right now.
I like that. Tough love. And I like how it was centered around food.
I know, right? So the wonderful thing I think about India and Indians is the food culture and how emotionally attached people are to food. Like, literally, you can have the biggest argument with somebody and then just yell out, "Have you had food?" And then no, and then, like, it's the end of the conversation. Like, we're going to
Yeah.
eat first, right?
When COVID happened and there was a travel ban, how did you
Yeah,
manage work as a content creator who travels? A
that was
travel
tough.
content creator.
God, that was tough. The good thing was that prior to that, I was traveling for 6 months continuously and I was very
Mm-hmm.
tired. So I was really craving for a long break at home, which I don't think I would have gotten
Mm-hmm.
if COVID wouldn't have kicked in. And I was
Mm-hmm.
contemplating, because I was so exhausted, how I could pivot my content into less travel centered. So
Mm-hmm.
COVID actually gave me the perfect excuse to make more home slash Bangalore slash foreigner in India centered content instead of just
Mm-hmm.
relying for travel content to fuel my channel. Now, was it
Mm-hmm.
easy? No, not at all, because I actually always avoided making home vlogs because I thought they were boring. But then I
Mm-hmm.
think I learned a lot from my fellow content creators, from Kritika Gol and from Tanya Kanyao,
Mm-hmm.
how they created their home content and use a lot of storytelling techniques. Like if you look at
Mm-hmm.
Tanya's content, if you look at Kritika's content, they use a lot of angles to show a certain situation.
Yeah.
And especially Tanya is a master storyteller. So I think by looking at my fellow content creators who were in the same in the same problem as
Mm-hmm.
I was, and seeing like how they were tackling those things, I was just pushed in a direction that I already wanted to go in.
Mm-hmm.
But also really developed a lot of new skills in terms of storytelling and and even like filming skills. Because if you're
Yeah.
filming at home, you do need to use different angles in order to
Yeah.
make a scene interesting. Whereas if you're traveling, you can get away with just taking a shot of one scene and then a shot of another scene and
Yeah.
put that one after the other. Like that is still interesting to look at. But if you just have one shot of a living room and you don't take it from different angles, that's not gonna that's not gonna
Yeah.
work. So in terms of um, technique, it has improved a lot because of that period. But it was definitely not easy because the moment travel opened up even a little bit, people were already complaining like, "Oh, why don't you go out there? Why don't you travel?" And I was like, you do realize that people are dying, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, that whole thing where my real life will always be more important than social media. I'm not going to risk dying for content. Like,
Yeah.
are you mad? That's just not going to happen. So I was forced, really forced to do or die and level
Mm-hmm.
up in that moment. But luckily, it did align with my personal goals where I already wanted to pivot more from 80% travel content to maybe 20-30% travel content. And that is, I think, where I am at now. And still I am pivoting. It's not something that I necessarily want to announce, because the moment you announce changes, people get really pissed and it ruffles their
Yeah.
feathers. And like I remember that when I switched from Dutch to English vlogs, I
Mm-hmm.
had 12,000 subscribers back then. This was after my first trip to India,
Okay.
where I first started English vlogging because I was in India and I was
Mm-hmm.
speaking English all day long. I just realized that this is not going to work. Like, how can I speak Dutch and then constantly like translate back to English to people who
Mm-hmm.
want to watch my vlogs and blah, blah, blah. So I switched from Dutch to English. But all of my 12,000 subscribers were Dutch. And
Yeah.
some of them got really pissed that I switched to English. And you have to imagine that English is officially taught in schools in the Netherlands. Dutch people
Mm-hmm.
are quite well spoken in English, but they were just so pissed that I was switching to English. I even got threats. I'm not even joking. Like somebody literally threatened me
Really?
to come to my home, and I don't know what. But again, tough upbringing. I was like, bring it, bitch. So do not threaten me seriously like
Uh-huh.
that. That will not go down well. But I learned from that experience that the moment you announce certain changes, it
Mm-hmm.
really upsets people. Whereas if you just, sneakily like phase it in and ease people into the changes that you are going through, that usually works better.
All right, let's go to audience questions.
Yay.
Okay, so the first question is from Abhishek from Angadipuram in Kerala. He
Oh,
asks, how do you survive in India?
well, there's good food. There's paneer. There's chai. I think that's kind of a crazy question, if I'm being very honest, because
Yeah. It was
if
hilarious.
it is, but on the one hand, it's hilarious, and on the other hand, there are a lot of people who seriously think this way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, have you seen how a lot of Indians survive? Like, I don't have that of a crazy life in India. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I my life is very comfortable in India. It's not like I've you know how do you say that? There are different comforts at home that I
Mm-hmm.
have, which I don't have in India. However, in India I have other comforts which make my
Yeah.
life a lot more easier. So yeah, surviving. I think I'm being pampered here. I'm being
Yeah.
spoiled. Yeah, definitely. With all those delivery services in Bangalore, like, oh my gosh, I never have to step, in the Netherlands, very often during my corporate career, I would come home at 6 p.m. and you have to cook your own food, period. So I would come home, look at my fridge, realize that I don't have the correct groceries. It would be
Mm-hmm.
raining outside and I would have to walk to the supermarket 10, 15 minutes or cycle through the rain to do my groceries, then go back and then cook my own food.
Oh
And
no.
exactly. That's what I mean. Like, what do you mean surviving in India? I used to survive in the Netherlands.
And Bangalore's a great place to be. You have
Oh my
literally an app for
gosh. We
everything.
are so spoiled in Bangalore. I can't even tell you. We are so spoiled. Every single Bangalorean who moves out of Bangalore, even if you're going to Mumbai or Delhi, it is not the same. We are spoiled here.
Yeah. Question number two. This is from Freddie in Kochi.
Hmm.
What was on your mind when you packed your bags to Kochi 8 years ago?
Like coming to the first time,
Yeah.
I was terrified. I'm not going to lie. I was really terrified. And especially because of those scenes that I've seen of Indian airport immigrations. I
Mm-hmm.
was literally expecting to be at the airport for 5 hours long. And to be, even walking out of the airport, I expected to be completely hogged by
Mm-hmm.
taxiwalas or something like that. Because my first experience in Bali was that, which was my first place where I departed for my first world trip. So it was my
Mm-hmm.
first time ever traveling to a far, far away country by myself. I landed in Bali and I had heard about the taxi guys, but I never expected it to be what it was. Like I stepped out of the airport and there were literally 9, 10 guys running towards me and completely hogging me, and I had to get through that. And because it was my first time, I was just mortified. I would not go as far to say traumatized, but it was
Mm-hmm.
really a very
Scary.
unpleasant it was really an unpleasant experience. So coming to India, I was expecting that, and the fact that there was no issues at immigration at all, and that there was nobody harassing me outside. Literally nobody harassing me outside. Kerala Airport or Kochi Airport is fantastic like that. It was just
Yeah.
it was the best welcome to India that I could have hoped for. Because those taxi guys harassing you, that is, oh my gosh, that is the worst welcome that you can get into a new country. So I was happy that that was not
Mm.
there.
Yeah. Yay, Kerala. Okay, question
Yay,
number
Kerala!
three. This
Seriously,
is
I love
from
Kerala.
question number three. This is from Kanika. She
Hmm.
says, what are your upcoming destinations in India or abroad that you want to explore this year?
Well, I'm going back to Kerala next week, so I'm very happy
Uh-huh.
about that.
Nice.
An unpopular opinion, definitely for somebody who is a travel content creator. I love, love, love going back to places that
Mm-hmm.
I loved in the first place. Because one thing that you also learn traveling a lot is that there are places that you love and there are places that you really don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have also learned is that when I go to places that I love, I get to explore them on a more deeper level. I get to connect with the people more. I get to experience new things about that place. I have never
Mm-hmm.
returned back to a place that I love and felt disappointed or felt that there was nothing new waiting there for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very excited to go back to Kerala because Kerala always is so good for me, so good for me. There, I don't know, like, is this a yogi thing to say? There is some connection there
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost therapeutic for me to go back to Kerala. Now, I love my Karnataka as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would definitely love to go back to Mangalore, your home place.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, Mangalore. I had very high expectations of Mangalore and it
Uh-huh.
exceeded all expectations. Seriously. It was so good. I
Wow.
loved everything about Mangalore. The funny thing is people like to depict it as a village or like a small place, but it is nothing like that. Mangalore is, I mean, like maybe I'm like putting Mangalore and Udupi together because
Mm-hmm.
they're quite close to each other, I think. But then, oh my gosh, and the things that you never see anywhere else. I went to Kambala in
Oh,
Bangalore.
nice. Yeah, I
It was
remember you
wild.
you had done a video about it, right? As part of Karnataka tourism?
Yeah, and it
Wow.
was just wild. I'm not sure if it should be promoted as a tourist activity though,
Mm-hmm.
but for me to experience it, I was just like, I love this expression of local culture. I love that.
Yeah.
And amazing food, my gosh. Again, so the thing with Mangalore is you have a lot of foods that you don't have anywhere else. And I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
talking about Mangalore buns, but there were like these special kinds of idlis and even
Yeah.
the thalis were just very different than you would get anywhere else. So I'm a huge Mangalore slash Udupi fangirl. um,
Yay.
and Northeast India is still my bucket list, man.
Yeah.
But my issue with Northeast
Oh.
India is that, if I go there, I want to go for a longer period of time because, again, I
Mm-hmm.
feel it's a place that if you rush it, you might not get the best impression. I feel like you have to go to Northeast India and really soak it up. And that's also what I've seen with
Yeah.
other travel content creators who go there. They usually go for a longer period of time. And the fact is, my life has kind of changed, especially now that I have a dog, where
Yeah.
going to the Netherlands for all those weeks was only because I hadn't seen my family for, 3 years. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
go to the Netherlands. I didn't go to the Netherlands for very often. So, but now departing to Northeast India for a month, leaving my dog behind, ooh, I would really have to plan a long time in advance for that. So, I would love to go to Northeast India, but maybe it's also mental block. I don't know. I've talked about this with a lot of Northeast people as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can I go for a week? And they say like, yeah, but then you just have to stay in one place. So you should just go
Yeah.
to Sikkim or something like that, or just Darjeeling. And I actually had plans last year to go to Darjeeling, but then
Mm-hmm.
like last minute other things came up and I couldn't go. So yeah, oh my gosh, Darjeeling. Have you seen Barfi?
No, I haven't.
Just watch that movie and you'll put Darjeeling on your bucket list. It's so
Okay.
stunning. My gosh, the scenery is just insane. Yeah, so I think like those three places would be on my bucket list.
Nice. All right, we've come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Ivana, for your time. I should say Ivana for
Thank
your
you for
time.
having me.
And do you have anything exciting coming up ahead other than these travel plans?
Oh, it is a collab, but it is in a completely different category than I've ever done. And I really hope I get to be the hot chick in the collab because I do love that role.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure if it's not confirmed yet, but like if I could put it out in the universe, I don't mind being a hot chick in a collab.
Awesome. So, all of you who are listening and watching this video, I'm going to link all of Ivana's socials below. Please do check her out. She makes amazing travel content and also really great observations about culture. So, if you're into that, definitely check her out. And thank you so much, Ivana. I hope you have a fantastic weekend ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. You had really fun questions and you're a very good listener.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for listening in. If you liked this episode, then please leave a rating on whatever platform you listen to this on so that it will help me get discovered by more listeners. New episodes of Chumma Conversations with your favorite content creators will be out every Wednesday, so make sure you click on that follow or subscribe button to make sure you never miss an episode when it comes out. Have a great week ahead. Bye.